Hi, my name is Chris. I've been testing the Canon R5 for about 6 months now, and I tested it in the 4 fields of photography that I do on a regular basis, which are Astro, landscape, wildlife and portrait. I won't concentrate on the video capabilities of the R5 or on the spec sheet because there's already a lot of videos out there to watch if you're interested in that kind of information. I also won't do any comparisons to other brands or camera models besides the Canon 1DX Mark II that I used to shoot before I switched over to the mirrorless R5. This is a practical review and we're going out into the field, so we'll not be taking photos of a wall and compare corner sharpness. Here it comes. This is what I learned after shooting 6 months with the Canon R5. Let's start out with Astro. Let's start with something that I didn't like as much about the R5. When you use the integrated 2 or 10-second timer, the countdown will show in the form of a red blinking light. There is no function in the menu to turn this off. This is not a big problem when you shoot alone, but when you have other people around you taking photos too, the red light will show up in their photos. And the last thing you want to do around astrophotographers is have any kind of light on. So how can we get around this? One solution is to use a wireless remote or cable release. Another one is one of my favorite features about the R5, which is to connect your camera through the Bluetooth wireless function to the Canon Camera Connect app on your phone. This means you don't need a wireless or cable release anymore. It is also very easy to start and end your exposure when you shoot in bulk. You click once to start your exposure and you can then exit the app and do other things and come back to the app later to stop your exposure. You can also change the settings on your camera, which can sometimes be easier to do on a dimmed phone screen than, for example, searching for your ISO button in complete darkness. One downside I noticed, especially when shooting Astro, is the battery life. It isn't terrible, but I could tell a difference to the ultra long-lasting battery life of the 1DX. There are a few workarounds to this problem. One of them could be buying extra batteries, another one would be buying the battery grip that is available for around $350. Overall, the battery life was still pretty good and I could shoot all night with just one battery. Okay, let's call it a night and move over to portrait photography. Weeks ago I was out taking senior and graduation pictures, and what I noticed right away was the autofocus. It was on top of the game and all of the 200 photos I took in that hour were pin sharp. I used the People Eye autofocus feature and it was quick and 100% reliable, even in bright backlit situations. One thing that I missed, especially at the beginning, was the second shutter button that my 1DX had. It made the workflow for shooting in portrait orientation very comfortable. I'm a little bit more used to it now than I was back at the beginning, but it still feels a little bit awkward. But then on the other hand, this will be something that the battery grip will also be able to fix because it comes with a second shutter button. Alright, let's do what we love most on this channel, landscape photography, coming up next. Up to now, Canon wasn't known for their dynamic range cameras and often was behind their competitors Nikon or Sony. But not anymore. Canon did a huge step forward. It's never been more exciting to pull shadows and drop highlights in Photoshop. Some of you may have noticed that I'm not using the graded filters so often anymore, and the dynamic range of the R5 is definitely a reason for that. One thing that drives me nuts is the sensor to change from display to viewfinder. Every time I'm pointing something out to another person on the display, even changing things at the back of the camera, it switches over to the viewfinder. There is an option in the menu to turn that function off, but I use display as well as the viewfinder, so it's, a little bit of a pain to switch it back and forth all the time. And speaking of the viewfinder, that's the perfect moment to lead over to our next topic, which is wildlife. Alright, let's talk about wildlife. Here I used the eye autofocus with priority for animals. It worked flawless as long as the animal was pretty big in the frame. But as soon as it is a smaller animal further away from you or in between the branches, I often couldn't get a sharp image. With the animal filling more of the screen, it was pretty easy though to get a very sharp image every single time. A fabulous feature, especially for the more patient wildlife photographer, is the touch and drag. So with the touch and drag feature, you can basically swirl your finger around your screen and tell the camera where exactly to focus. It works very well, especially when you see smaller birds that hop around within a bush. For example, a little hummingbird that is so small in the frame, so it makes it very easy to tell the camera where to focus. What I noticed though, when I look through the viewfinder, sometimes the touch and drag gets activated by my nose. So within the touch and drag autofocus settings, you can select which area of the screen you want to be sensitive to your thumb. And I would suggest here that you choose either right or left, depending if you're right or left-handed, because if you have the whole panel activated and your nose touches the screen, it can sometimes throw the autofocus off. And right there, I had to take a break from filming because this cute duck family decided to come out for a swim. They were pretty far away, but the autofocus worked great. I want to show you a few more photos, like this morning dove here for example is pretty easy for the autofocus to catch because there aren't a lot of other things in the frame. But with the next 3 photos here, the touch and drag came in super handy because they were all smaller animals hopping or flying in front of a busy background with twigs, leaves or berries. I took this photo of a quail from about 10 meters away with my 70-200mm lens, which isn't the best focal length for birds really. But later on the computer, I cropped in quite a bit, and I want to zoom in here and show you the amount of detail even in this cropped version. The 45 megapixel of the Canon R5 really come in handy during situations like this, where you don't have a 400mm lens with you. That's gonna be it for this week's video. Make sure to tune in next week when Mike and I are changing camera gear, and he's actually using the Canon R5 and I'm using his Nikon D850. See you over there, bye!